And now, from Grid Square Echo Mike 48, this is 100 Watts and a Wire.
Well, hello and welcome to 100 Watts and a Wire. My name is Christian, K0STH, with you. Hanging out now on a Sunday, episode 271, I believe. This week we are going to be talking
271?
about 371, maybe something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
All right, Steve, W7 UDI, keeping the straight. I'm in New York City. I've been hanging out in the Village, and I don't know if the gummies are saturating me or the smell. That's another thing. We could talk about that. But on this show specifically, we're going to be talking about amateur radio in small places. I got rigs in small places, Steve. You know that one, right? We got some country tunes here, but we've got a little bit of news to break tonight and or today, whenever you're listening to this. But welcome, hello. If you got a question, put a Q in front of it and drop it into the chat. Each Sunday we get together 6 o'clock Central Time to record the weekly podcast. We do it live so we can converse with you and engage with you. This week, though, again, coming to you live from Manhattan in New York City. And Steve's holding it back down on the West Coast, so he's still got it going on there. But Steve, we've got some breaking news. I've got to get to it here. Let me bring him in. Here he is. Everybody's breaking my balls. What's going on? Scotty was at a thing today. What is it there? I'm bling bling. I'm like, who gave you my number? Oh, like who is this? Who's calling? No, I got some information on Scotty. I don't know.
Scotty.
Let's see if you can pick it out, guys, and let me know if you can see. You won't be able to see this on the podcast, but the people who are tuning in may just be able to tell what's going on. And there's something different about Scotty's call sign.
Oh, dear.
Some extra letters there, if you will.
Complexion has kind of changed a little bit.
He looks very happy. It's almost like he's taken a big test and graduated into.
Kind of has a glow to him.
He's glowing.
He's
Got
glowing.
the glow.
Tell us all about it, Scotty.
Post-exam glow. Today I took my test for extra, and I passed with flying colors. I am now Kilo Charlie 3 Bravo X-Ray November Slant Alpha Echo.
Cool.
Not to be mistaken for Alpha Hotel, but
That's
Alpha
true.
Echo.
Or the Browns Motel, for that matter.
Yes.
Oh, no, there'll be a special celebration at the Browns tonight. Everyone's welcome.
I'm flying in. I'm chartered a plane.
I just heard something on the police scanner before I logged in here tonight about the check on wellness at the Browns. I was like, oh, dear.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so hello, Jerry. We've got some friends here gathered here on Sunday. We always encourage you to come by if you can, if you have free time, to join us for the live recording of the podcast, celebrating the fact that Scotty has upgraded and is now a amateur extra. Now, so we should talk about this a little bit, Steve, because now, and I don't know when the rule started or went into effect, but there is a time period where you have to do the stroke AG or the stroke AG. Do you know too much about that? Can you explain why?
So Scotty currently is in the database as a general. So if he's in the general portion of the band that he's operating, he doesn't have to sign stroke AE. If he goes into the extra portion of the band, so tonight if he ventures out and gets a little frisky and heads down to say like 14,200, then he's going to have to identify as stroke AE.
We're going to dip down into the 3.7 land. Ooh.
There you
That's
go.
Awesome. That's awesome. Our friend Don saying, way to go, Scotty, and getting congratulations from Jerry and Mark as well. John says, woohoo! Woohoo! Yeah, it is a big accomplishment. I don't want to steal any thunder at all. I just want to say, I remember when I took that test and I gave myself, I think it was 6 weeks. I gave myself 6 study weeks, blocked it off, and I had to do, I'm the kind of guy that had to study, and you can tell us how you studied for that. And everybody's different. I studied with a computer because I'm in front of one a lot, and it made sense. I get a little downtime, but I had to do a little bit every day. And I ended up studying for 4 weeks and then deciding to go and get it. I started to test where I was starting to pass it. And I was like, I'll just go do it. But I gave myself 6 weeks. What did you do, Scotty? What did you put aside, or what was your approach?
Well, I've been studying on and off for a while. COVID 2020, I was planning on going in and going to get tested, and then that kind of got derailed. Everybody stopped testing in person, and nobody was doing online testing. And then, of course, all the other stuff that came with dealing with, trying to figure out how work was going to deal with not being able to go in, and I just kind of put it on the back burner. And then my brother expressed some interest in getting his, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to test with you. So I just have a ham study account. I think camstudy.com, and was just started going down the rabbit hole studying the different elements, and then banging out some practices and practice exams. And so I started that maybe 2 nights ago. I just crammed. I've been studying on and off for a couple of years, and so I just crammed for the last 2 nights and went in and nailed it today.
Steve, what do you remember about taking the big test? I know it might have been different when you got your highest level test.
Actually, it was under the VE program like this, because I stayed advanced for a long time, and so I just did some studying, figuring out mainly the rules for VE sessions and stuff, and then started doing practice exams. And then the day of the exam, we had my wife was pregnant at the time, and we had a doctor's appointment, and it didn't go well. She had a miscarriage, and so I was a kind of a semi-emotional foobard, and she just go take your test, and I was like, fudge, I'm not going to pass this test. My mind's not there, and went down and passed it. So it was. I wasn't expecting it because I just wasn't in the mood for it, or my mindset was somewhere else. But got it done, and here we are. So it was kind of a goofy setup, but it worked out. I was pretty content with being advanced.
Yeah. And of course, thank you for sharing your story and your personal life with us like that, Steve. That's got to be a tough road, and hopefully you found some comfort in being able to break away a little bit and get your head on something else. I know that always tends to work. Okay, we got some questions coming in. If you have a question, put it in the queue. We're going to be talking about amateur radio in small spaces, and I can tell you how that all came to be. At least the show idea kind of came together maybe on Wednesday, because I'm in New York City for a couple of weeks for a family thing. My daughter's in a program here, so we're staying with her because she's still quite young, and this city is feels a little tougher than I remembered just last year, and I've been coming here for a long time. Anyway, I think all cities are struggling with a lot of different things right now, and just being in the biggest city in the country, you're seeing a lot of different things. Not to put anybody off, still love the city very much and enjoy being here. But the touristy areas are kind of one that we tend to stay away from those areas a little bit. You get a little more riffraff and stuff going around. And I had a side conversation with Ben just through like our Discord. And you're all welcome to join us if you do that. I know people are on Facebook. We're going to have a big milestone, I guess you'd put it there. We're about to, I think, we're going to go over 15,000 probably here shortly. Anyway, getting a little off track, but you're welcome to join us. And Big Ben asked me, he said, how's things going out there? And it was just one of these wacky things, because I'm the dad that's kind of on scan. I'm looking for where are the risks, as my kids are counting the dogs. They're counting all these little cute dogs, and they're all over. Look at this one, and they're all over. Dogs are all over the city, so they're counting, keeping score. Dad's on radar. Bloop, 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 bloop. Anyway, had this little story, and I think I'm just way too old to be fighting, that kind of stuff. But it's some wacky old fella, and it's so hot here, guys. It's just like, holy moly. And I think it's all over. It's August. We can say it's summertime in the city. Oh, but old boy came across the street, no shirt on, looking buck wild. He had like a half of a broom. The top end of the broom had been snapped off. And so we're crossing the street, and he takes and he breaks it over his knee right in front of my kids and my wife, and real close. And I'm like, here we go. Like, this is going to be and he said something like, F something, something. And, I don't know if he was going through something in his head, but he kind of shifted away. Thank goodness, because I don't want to be getting caught up in that stuff. But the city feels like most major cities are these days. The community is cool where it's cool, but there's a lot of everything mixed in. Saw a couple of celebrities been on the street, so this is where you see almost everything. You've got celebrities on the corner, and you also got homeless, sick, mental health patient on the corner. It's all here, and maybe that's what makes it great. But other than that event, there's been nothing else that really been off-putting. And I got midweek, and I thought, this repeater. I hit up Pastor Joe. Pastor Joe's in Jersey. He's not too far from here. What are the New York repeaters? So I got a handful. DJ gave me one he was in Connecticut. He's like, I use this one. I'm down. I put them all in. Must have been 5 or 6. And I tell you guys, there's one, I think it's .85. It's in Manhattan. Crickets, man. I mean, every now and again, I'm hearing a couple of guys get on in the morning. They might be the retired fellas that get on, and you hear them a little bit. But I was thinking to myself, man, is this it? I'm on the 3rd floor of a building here, small place, no HF potential at all. I'd have to go out. And I was thinking to myself, what do people do, in these small things? I know it's a luxury for me to have a little bit of space back in Missouri. Not everybody does. If you lived and worked in this city, man, I'm thinking, I don't know, the repeaters aren't enough. It's just not enough to even listen to. And you made a good point about it, Steve, when we kicked off, when we started kicking it around a little bit. Your thoughts on repeaters?
It's dead all over. I mean, you hear people just complain about it. 10, 15 years ago, it was fairly active, and it was, and even 20, 30 years ago, it was really active. It was hard to get in there because there was always something going on. Great for listening. There was always the gangs that kind of hung out, and the commute gang that drove into work in the morning, and they're complaining about traffic or this or that, or getting ready, talking about what they're going to be doing for the day, and then the same crowd show up in the evenings and driving home and complaining about traffic, and then talking about what they ended up doing that day, or what's coming up, or talk about what's coming up for the weekend. And guys that are, we're going to go do this, we're going to go do that. Some guys go, we're going to go up to the repeater site, do this, do that. And but nowadays it's just, they're there, but it's just everyone's gotten mic shy, or they just don't want to utilize it. And I feel for the newer hams coming in. They just got their ticket. They like your brother and Scotty, and now he's going to come into this wasteland, and it's like, well, key up the microphone on the radio. Oh, there's a repeater there. Maybe make a call on there, but it'll be crickets. Though no one will answer. Don't want to talk to a newbie or whatever. And it's really, really sad that we're just not having the amount of activity. Now, I'm not saying this is all across the country. I mean, there's places that are, very active with their repeaters and stuff, but the majority where I've been going around these days here in the Northwest, it's relatively quiet. There's a few that have some activity, but for the most part, it's the only activity here is the weekly nets that will come on and go from there. But the rest of the time, it's hello, anybody home? Anybody there?
I was here in right around Field Day last year, and I knew I was actually really excited by the fact that there were so many people that were using the repeaters. And this year I'm like, wait a minute. Last year I was here around Field Day, so there was all this coordination going on. People were talking about what they were doing, and I thought this was the norm. And this year I'm just like, wow, man. And I don't know if it's because it's just getting a little into the weeds here, trying to talk about the problems of repeaters. And there's probably a lot of layers to this. Who owns the repeaters? Who lets whom get on it and use it? And these sorts of things. But I thought in a city that this size, you'd always hear something. And I was a little disappointed. So it had me. I don't know, Scotty, how you're going to bring your brother along in this, because I think the gateway is the HT. I mean, HF is sort of like, all right, if you've got a little bit of means, you can get yourself set up. But go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, one of the things I think is going to help him some is his location. He's located on an elevation of about like 780 feet or something, which is a small mountain ridge here in kind of in Maryland, just outside of Frederick, Braddock Mountain. And from there, he can if he sets up the home station that I've been piecing together for him over the last couple of years, which is a Kenwood TM281 and a copper J pole, and gets that up. He's going to have some pretty good coverage. He's going to be able to reach out to repeaters far, past, out towards me, and then, out towards the bay on the other side of the city. He'll be able to get down to south pretty easily down into Virginia. He was talking with Ben. He met Ben today, and they were talking, and Ben was giving him some ideas on some repeaters that he could likely hit from his location down his way. That'll hopefully, being that he'll be able to get out quite a bit because he's up high, might kind of open up some more options as far as making contacts, and I hope that's the case.
Steve, was it always about like nowadays I hear people talking about, let's schedule something. It's like you can send an email and schedule to get on. What was it like? Grandpa, what was it like? I don't want to make it sound like that, but I just 10 years ago might have been different, 15 years ago, where people weren't scheduling things on email and they were just kind of jumping on and seeing what was on.
Yeah, they were just getting on and mixing it up, and basically, if there was a group chatting, they would kind of either get into the mix of it and then or wait till it was done and then call their party. It got so bad at times that some of the repeater owners of various repeaters would set up and say, hey, kind of during these hours, kind of limit your QSOs and be mindful of mobile. Some repeater owners were more they had more consideration to the mobile operators versus the ones that were at home. And but every repeater and every owner, just like we all are on HF, and we operate our station differently, and it was the same. And each one kind of had its own personality. And so, some of the busy, really active ones, you kind of have to get in there and mix it up and kind of elbow your way in and, make a name for yourself and go from there, where others was like, there wasn't that much activity, so it wasn't really much of a problem. And then the ones that really got me was the guys would say, oh, we don't want you talking very long. This repeater's here for emergency use, so we want to have the repeater available. And it's like, well, what better way to test your repeater and make sure it's going to hold up by not having people use it? And that one always kind of got me. It was like, if you don't use it, then if something goes wrong with it, you won't know about it until there was a need for it, and then it wasn't there. So the philosophies between operators and owners of these systems, but overall, it's unfortunately there is kind of a decline. There's just not the activity like there used to be, and we have all these licensed operators. So where are they?
Yeah. And every city's going to be different. Every town will be different. We're just generally talking. Again, last year was a little different, but I was here at a different time, and field day sort of heats up on the HTs and the repeaters and the talk-ins and all that sort of stuff. And this year, not so much. All right, we got to.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, baby.
Radio history. 1955, Tokyo Telecommunications Engineering, the precursor to Sony, begins selling its first transistor radios in Japan. Now, on the 11th, in 1942, actress Hedy Lamarr, our friend Steve dated her for a brief time, just about 6 months. Get Her and her composer friend, George Antheil, I think you'd say.
Yeah, him and I
Received the-
didn't get along.
I think there's a whole nose broken thing, and it was kind of weird. You had to go to Mayberry and get Andy Griffith to officiate.
Thought I was some radical guy that sat in a sidecar and went racing. It was just
This was a precursor to our winning streak.
One of those guys.
one of those guys. He was
He
jealous.
was too judgy. He was too judgy, and I told him, don't do that. But what are you going to do? And Steve was a handsome man. What are you going to do?
Sidecar named Desire.
He's known around the way for being a big fella. Well, anywho, they got a patent for the spread spectrum frequency hopping system. On the 12th, our friend, this was back in 1877. We were just kids back then running on the schoolyard when Edison was kicking it. He was the king. He invented the phonograph 12, the 1902 Fessenden granted patent for a hot wire barretta.
And he was the original DJ doing the old scratch on it.
Oh yeah, DJ
Edison.
ED.
Yeah, DJ Edison.
On the 12th, 1960, a little closer to today, U.S. launches Echo 1, the first communication satellite. And on the 13th, in 1912, the Radioact of 1912, titled An Act to Regulate Radio Communication, was approved. And that's some of the stuff that's been going on. Thank you very much for that. So we're having a conversation today on this episode about doing ham radio in small places because I got I don't know about the HT repeater situation here. It's kind of a bummer. And so I thought, what are people doing? And in fact, today I saw an antenna that was strange to me. It turns out I go to the Wizard and I'm like, dude, what do you make of this one? And Steve was like, I don't know.
I'm not sure.
It's wacky. I'll have to put it in the Discord. I'll put it in Discord for you guys later, and maybe somebody can figure it out after we finish up our evening tonight. I'll put it in there, but so to speak. And but I was looking around. I'm thinking, what is that? Like, that is an interesting antenna. It's on a shorter building roof, a flat top. And I think of Scotty because he's in a small place and he's just chomping at the bit, feeling so good with his AG at the end of his call. Big fella, he's AE.
He's big man on campus right now.
His AE. Yeah, his big AE.
He's not no lonely old G. He's an E.
No, he's not a G. He's an AE. Well, thank you. Wow, Rick gave him 3. 4.
Man.
Wow, how about that?
It's just going on and on and on.
Something else.
He's just all excited.
So I was figuring, what do the people do? And I'm thinking, of course, you try to go vertical, but a lot of the buildings here in Manhattan have those slanted roofs. It's really tricky. Maybe you're not as fortunate to be on the top floor to get up there. And so this started my head spinning about this whole topic on what people do. Now, Scotty, your situation is a little different. You are in an apartment on the top floor. You have roof access, and you've got AG. Sorry, we're contractually.
Ain't no mate.
Obligated to say that. What are you doing there in that busy city? And you've posted pictures on Discord about all the spaghetti of wires and everything running down that street. It looks crazy. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's a mess, and it's a historic district too, which kind of adds a little bit of extra complexity to the situation. I'm in an interesting situation where I have a tree that that I have thrown a long wire over, and it's since the power company rerouted the power lines for the neighbor's building underneath it. But so that was working okay for a while, but that's not something that you're going to find in New York City to be able to do. But I do have a little flat roof area where I do have a microphone stand, an old Atlas heavy bass microphone stand with 10-foot piece of conduit where I have my 2-meter antenna, which is an Arrow J-pole. At the top, there's a small UHF folded dipole there, and Isotron 20-meter and 40-meter antennas are part of that equation as well, all mounted to that little mic stand masts. It's not too far. It's not too top heavy, and I made a little bracket to bolt it to the easement there along the roof line. But yeah, that little flat top antenna or flat top roof was a real lifesaver. If I didn't have that, I'd be having a lot more trouble getting some antennas up in the air at this location for sure.
And he doesn't have to above ground. You don't have to get it up like that, do you, Steve? Oh, come on, pay attention. We're talking about height above ground. It was on the test. You would know about this, Sherry. Good Lord.
What frequency are we talking about?
Yeah, he didn't have to get it up so high, right? He's on the Jesus. Come on,
Sherry, relax.
Sherry.
Chill out. Jeez, come on.
I didn't understand that in the beginning. I'm not ashamed to say it, but I didn't understand height above ground. I would think that I needed to be up 30 more feet or whatever it needed to be from the base of the rooftop or whatever it was. I didn't understand in the earlier days that you're actually still above the ground at that point. So when he says he doesn't have to, looking at Sherry, put it up there. So there's no way around it. There's no way around this one. Sorry about that.
Yeah, my 2-meter antenna is probably about actual feet above actual ground. Is probably pushing 35 to 40 feet. So
that's cool. That's good.
That's pretty good.
Because I got the just drops straight down into the creek. I mean, it's the ground level at the back of the house. It drops about 15 to 16 feet lower than it does on the front side of the building where Main Street is. So, and that's where all my antennas are all on the back side. So I have that extra, the creek that that adds a little bit of extra ground depth. It's all granite, so I don't know if it's any good ground, but it's a little higher back there.
Hear him, Steve. All his antennas are on the backside. So there you go. Forgot to take a little bit of. Jeez, you guys are terrible. It brings out the worst in me.
Right now.
We'll get canceled soon. We're right between Porky Pig cartoons, What's Happening, and as soon as they put Andy here,
to the movie.
What do we got going on? Oh, look at this. Next weekend, August 13th and 14th, we have the Maryland QSO party happening.
Yay. Are you going to partake?
I think I might. We'll see. What else is happening? We have Kentucky State Parks on the air happening August 13th. And then a cool special event station. I actually, Mark from the Discord kind of brought this to our attention. The world's largest teapot special event. Where that's running from August 8th to the 14th. They're going to have a special event station in each of the call districts. Celebrating the world's largest teapot, which I believe is in West Virginia.
Yes,
and so that's happening all week. So that's what's happening.
As opposed to the world's largest
Dynamite!
That is somewhere else. Probably somewhere here in New York. Just guessing. Don't forget to check out Hour 73. Our podcast is kicked off. We are 4 episodes in. We are headed into number 5 this week. We're looking beyond the first 72 hours of preparedness to explore self-reliance as a lifestyle. It is not specifically geared toward amateur radio, but amateur radio is part of, in my opinion, any good preparedness plan. So there you go. So lots of questions coming in about your relationship with Miss Hetty, was it? Was her name was Hetty? Yeah, it was Hetty Lamar. No idea, man. I had no idea, but what a looker. You always did well in that category. What a looker. Let's go over to our Facebook. And if you're here joining us, we always encourage you to come and be here with us live as we do the show, as we record the podcast each week, 6 o'clock Central. We also pull your comments and commentary from the chat, from Discord, and from Facebook. And we're doing that again today. And I asked the question, what do you do in small places? Not a lot of feedback here, because I think a lot of people who have issues like the one I'm experiencing here in New York probably make a go kit and maybe they drive to parks and activate that way. I think that's a really good way of kind of getting around the fact that if I lived here for whatever reason, I probably couldn't get roof access, and I probably have to go that route. I mean, I think that's. I mean, what would you do, Steve? I mean, think about it. It's probably been a while since you've been in sort of that sort of tight area like that. But what do you think?
Well, I mean, if you're in an apartment building, let's talk about New York.
Scotty, you're a terrible AG. You're the worst.
Because I'm an
Anyway. AE, I've got dyslexia. I'm trying to downgrade you. He's an AE for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's been in plenty of tight spaces. I'm sorry. Terrible.
But yeah, it would be some kind of mobile antenna or something on the fire escape or your balcony, whatever you have. If you were trying to do any HF, similar with 2 meters, probably a J pole, mounted to the fire escape or your balcony, whatever you have, lanai, and so it's that it would be very, very limited. I would think for me, if I was in that situation, my activities would be limited to VHF, UHF, and
I agree.
And then if you did any HF, it would be ham sticks or something like that, or bloody poles. But who knows? Portable antennas. Loops. Mag loops are just kind of relatively new. So yeah. Back in my
Jacob
days,
says that's what he does, but it doesn't perform that well. And a mag loop, much different than the loops we talk about, like a square loop or some kind of other loop. We're talking about the metal loop there, and you have to very low bandwidth, I guess you'd say. You've got to really tune every frequency in. It's not the end of the world. They make them at 100 watts. I know that's for sure. He used some other antenna sticks that he tries to operate at night. He takes them down, hooks them up to his coax and that sort of thing, and tries to work FT8. So maybe there's a push toward the digital. I think digital could be a good solution.
And that was the mode that really got a lot of people through the solar minimum, was FT8. It came along at the right time, and it's a perfect mode to for if you're in a tight squeeze and you got a limited place to put up antennas and operate from. That's a great mode.
Let's see. Greg says he's been using the Hustler 4B TV, which is about 30 years old. We don't exactly know everyone's setup. We just know that they're in a smaller space. They maybe can't run a longer antenna, that sort of thing. He says, unfortunately, some of the traps went. So for now, he's using an end-fed, which might be a good option. I know Scotty talked about it. He was doing something before it got really dicey about where he was, and the power company kind of moved things around on him like that, and it just wasn't safe at that point. Albert says stealthy end-fed antenna. RE says he's got a 40-meter off-center fed dipole at 15 feet. This is something completely different. But yeah, I guess it depends on what your definition of a small space is. Maybe I needed to say that sort of city thing. But a 40-meter off-center fed, that's actually real nice, man. You'd be loving that in any city in this situation. But he says we live in an RV. I guess that's another way to go. You can, pull into a place. He's got HF dual band. He's got scanners there. Ron's got a 43-foot wire and a 4-to-1 onion. Timothy drives a semi, so he goes out in his semi and he'll work when he's out there on the road. Different Scott says, I've set up a G5 RV into my building attic, a crawl space. With that antenna, he's been able to make great contacts abroad with his FTDX 1200.
Yeah.
He's Kilo Charlie 2. NUD, November, United, Delta. Our friend Ricardo, who lives in Paradise down there in Florida, he used to live in a condo, had a decent-sized attic, Used the 7100 from ICOM and an AH4 auto tuner with radials, and he really did it up. And he said since the attic was 30 feet above the ground, he had great reception and minimal interference. Scotty, how do you do with interference?
Oh, it's got a fair amount of interference here. There's a bunch of restaurants and bars, and they're all running, flat screen TVs and blenders and refrigerators, AC units, freezers galore. So there's plenty of noise in town, but I make do.
If you're in a small area, you're in the chat. Let us know what you're running there, where you are. Mark says he's been in the city too long. I guess it just depends. I mean, Scotty's setup would be a blessing to somebody who's living in, say, Manhattan here, because there's just I mean, the buildings are all tall. Even the smaller ones are too tall to get on the roof, and they all seem slanted. I'm one of these guys. I don't know if you are, but I go to new places and I'm looking up at the roof. I'm looking up, what is up there? How would you even get up there? I'm like, that's not possible. Couldn't, and you can't really just say, I can't live here. I always thought people who live in small places, cities and apartments or an HOA, oh, you just should move. Move. Like,
it's easy to say that, but it's, everyone's circumstances is different and where they're at. And it's, it's disingenuous for us to say, well, just move out of the HOA, go somewhere else. And it's or move out of the apartment. It's like, no.
Just go buy a farm so you can have antennas.
Yeah.
DJ says, at least Christian's not calling you Alpha Hotel. I'm calling you.
It happened, DJ. It happened earlier. You missed it.
You missed it.
He did go there.
Oh, Lord. I got to
We went down that road really fast.
That's a great feeling. That is a great feeling. James, it's a great feeling to get your amateur extra. Not such a, but it's a great feeling too to call him an Alpha Hotel. Oh, Lordy, this is a mess. James says my shack is in my closet. He's KG5 Lima Tango Lima. Bruce, he says he'd vote for a mag loop. It can work for you. I've had those just sitting in the garage on a rainy day trying to work it out. And it wasn't even that frustrating. I think once you get used to the tuning of those, you're good to go. You have to, if you want to call and park and bark, that might be better than chasing stations and tuning. That could be frustrating all the time.
And I've worked a few guys that had mag loops, and they've had a very respectable signal on the air. I mean, so they do work. The problem is because they have such a high Q, their bandwidth is really, really narrow. So you find a spot, then you got to tune the antenna, and there's just a lot of going back and forth. And I think a lot of people get frustrated because they just want to spin the dial and park and bark. But with a mag loop, you got to go through a few more extra steps. But they work. They're reasonably good antennas. And then another one for if you live in an HOA lot in a community and you have like a wooden fence. Put your dipole antenna at the top of the wooden fence, 5-6 feet off the ground. You'll be amazed what you can do with it, even on 75 meters.
Okay, guys, got wood? Use it. That's from Uncle Steve. He says, Sidecar says, you got a wooden fence?
Wood? Use it.
Got wood? Use it. TX Radio DX. He's Kilo India 5 Sierra Hotel Yankee. That's K1 5 Shy. I like that. He says, I'm in a tiny lot in an HOA. I have a 50-foot Nelson end-fed set up as a sloper behind a tree. Sounds like a good option. Hello to Steven, who's checking in. Let's see. We've got someone in our green room in the Discord. Hang on there. We'll probably get to you in a little bit there. He says, I'm starting my general class training tomorrow evening. There you go.
All right.
That's Ishmael.
Good job, Ish.
Joining us from the Dominican Republic, I'm guessing. I could be
Dominica.
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 Dominica, yeah.
Okay, good deal. All right. So if you have anything to add to that conversation with that, that sounds very good. Now we got some other stuff we need to check. Let's see. Let me get some good music here. Something sexy. Yeah, sexy. Oh yeah. All right, that's pretty sexy. I'll take that. Let me find my page. Here I am. This one screen situation. I'm struggling through it. If you're looking for a power solution, check out Bioenno Power, offering the best lithium phosphate batteries for your ham radios. Visit bioennopower.com. That's BIOENNO power.com. Scotty was at a ham fest today. He was getting all AE'd up. Is there anything still going on in the heat of summer, Scotty?
Yeah, I got some ham fests lined up happening next weekend. We have August 13th, the 72nd annual Gab Fest in my father's hometown of Uniontown, Pennsylvania. That's happening next Saturday, 13th. Also on the 13th, the West Central Illinois Ham Fest in Carlinville, Illinois. And there's quite a few going on. I just picked a few from the ARRL website. August 14th, so a Sunday one, St. Charles Amateur Radio Club Hamfest in O'Fallon, Missouri.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, that's out your way.
Missouri, yeah. We like to call it Missouri, but some people...
I just watched the Outlaw Josie Wales a little earlier in the weekend, so
yeah,
Missouri it is.
All right, if you have a question, put a Q in front of it. There was a question that came in... Steve, and it came from a friend on Discord. Everybody's welcome to drop a Q in the chat here when we do our live shows, and it doesn't have to be regarding the topic. We can talk about anything, life in general, you name it. But it was Don, our friend Don, who runs a 20-meter net for the 100 watts of our Sunday evening net, asked a question this week in the chat about POTA. He was running POTA, and he's what the kids say. I think they got some shade. He got some shade as he was out there, and he put a question asking about, are people basically getting that way with POTA? Have you noticed any sort of heat going toward POTA ops?
I haven't seen it or heard of it. The only thing I hear is people just clamoring to work the guys, working people. Now, we have our stellar operators, our A1 operators on the band that sometimes they are full of themselves and they're full of a bunch of other stuff, and they might be throwing a little shade around, which is unfortunate, but I just say, Don, work through it and not worry about it. From what I've, the weekends I would be seeing is just POTA operations just popping up all up and down the band. But these are the same a-holes that would be complaining about contests and everything else. So they're just grumpy and not happy with life, and they just found something else to complain about, and you just happen to be the recipient so far. So don't take it personal.
Timothy chimes in and says, yeah, it's not big, but it works good.
There you go.
Just thought I'd let everybody know that we sympathize with you, Timothy.
I like
not
it.
having a big one. Okay.
It's not how big it is, it's how well it works.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And I have heard the old boys on the frequencies. And I think what happens here with POTA, I have heard POTA ops just jump in, right? I think POTA is a fantastic program. I love National Parks on the Air. Activated some of them myself. Enjoyed it. I love getting out. Worldwide Flora and Fauna is another great program that I think is really cool. I think what happens sometimes, guys, is that what I've heard is you've got a low power station generally coming in, however many watts, let's just say 100 and down, and they just kind of come on the frequency, and then they're like, maybe they ask if it's in use, maybe they can't be heard, whatever, maybe they don't ask. I've heard it both ways, but what I hear the most is somebody will just jump on the frequency and start calling POTA, CQ POTA, CQ POTA, and there's no kind of They land on these frequencies where guys sort of just camp and chill. Like sometimes when you go past a frequency and don't hear anybody, that doesn't mean they're not there listening. They may just be taking a break from each other. It's like these long, it's like a living room, and somebody starts to talk again. And it's like, hey, did you see such and such? And then, so they're kind of on the frequency, but they're not, there's dead air. And I hear these ops come in and they just get flamed. And it's like they power over them because they just don't care. And the op may just scurry off. But it is getting, in some areas of the bands, like you said, contests, where they just pop up, CQ-POTA, and it's annoying some of the old birds. So I think it's a multi-layered thing where we have to always remember our etiquette. Make sure you're asking 3 times, is the frequency in use? Maybe space it out a little bit more. And then kind of go from there and see where you land. But I've heard that, Steve, a couple of times, and the reaction is kind of like, go right to the contest bucket. It's like, oh, the POTAs are out there again. And these brothers are running their 1,500 watt amps, and they're not.
And then
they're not. It's like a fly at the picnic. But they're definitely throwing a little shade because then they'll start chattering up. But they're parked. Any thoughts on that, you guys?
Yeah, I mean, those guys, and there's quite a few of them that they want to have their little space where they can be left alone. They don't want to talk to anybody other than amongst themselves. Someone comes in and encroaches on their frequency, which is not, and they just kind of lose their collective minds. And on the backside of it, these are the same ones that were complaining about that. Well, there's nothing going on in the bands. Why is it so quiet? So you can't have your cake and eat it at the same time. It's you need to just like chill, embrace it, and just enjoy that there's activity on the band, that people are are using it, because if we're not using it, we'll lose it. It's just HF is going to become valuable again. It's just a matter of time. Right now, it's not super valuable, but sooner or later, HF is going to become valuable spectrum, and the commercial interests they'll be more than happy to lay down the big bucks, and we're going to get the boot. So, and if we use it and we're not arguing amongst ourselves, then we'll have a good chance to keep our spectrum. But it's ridiculous. I've just the hypocrisy at times that complain about the bands are not being used, and then when the band's being used, it's being used in a way that is not acceptable to you, and that's wrong. I mean, we have so many modes, we have so many different opportunities to utilize our license and enjoy the hobby our way, whether it's analog, digital, CW, FT8, slow scan TV, whatever floats your boat in the hobby, use it and enjoy it, and just don't let the detractors, tear you down, and just continue on. But it is pretty hypocritical on these guys, and it's unfortunate.
But make sure you do the etiquette part too, that the part that your side of it, your obligation of it, is to ask if that frequency is in use, not to jump on there. I've heard ops do it, and there's a lot of people enjoying POTA, and it's nothing about the program. It's just like, I think people get so excited to run and go. Don't forget about that part. Do the due diligence and what the FCC requires and what the rules are. And if you do that, the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to be like, yeah, you Alpha Hotel, yeah, you hit that and you just roll on.
Well, the other problem I've seen and witnessed that like a POTA activation will ask for the frequency is clear, and he has a pretty compromised antenna system. The propagation is not working at the time. And then another station who never heard the original, because now all of a sudden all these people start piling up, calling the POTA station, then he loses his collective mind and his panties are all wadded up because someone came on his frequency And then the argument goes back and forth, and it's like, well, yeah, he did ask. Unfortunately, you didn't hear him. The other time, sometimes happens that the two stations are too close to each other. They don't hear each other, and this happens all the time. It's I've had it to where I'm just on net nights going along, just making contacts, and then boom, someone just starts having a conversation, and they're like, they're not hearing us, and it's like, okay, they're calling CQ, and it's like, hello.
And if they don't hear each other, then they may actually hear the stations because they get spotted pretty quickly. So they'll hear the calling stations coming, and the big guys now are hearing these.
Everyone else calling this little guy, and they're like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, what's going on? These and then it just leads to this thing. I think the most you can do is just make sure you check the frequency and try to be a good neighbor. But yeah, he put that in the question, and I think we covered that all right there. Keep on pushing though get on out there and do it. You just got to keep doing it. James has a question I think only you could answer. He wants to know, do you know what temperature LMR 400 is compromised? KG5 LTL. And I don't know if this has to do, I guess it's heat temperature. I don't know. You know anything on this, Steve?
Being it's coming from James, I'm assuming it's from fire and the fire damage and radiant. So if look at the jacket, the PVC material that's on that makes up the outer jacket is going to be more susceptible to heat versus the center dielectric. There's be a little bit of a shielding from the heat with the foil and the braided shield, but if there's some bubbling going on the outer jacket, I would be in the mindset of just pulling it out and changing it out and putting in a new piece. I mean, you can test it, but if there's any bubbling now, the integrity of the jacket is compromised, and down the road you'll have water egress into the coax. So at that point, I just pull it out and replace it. And hopefully it's not a super long run, but you could always, if you really wanted to try to save as much as you can, cut out the bad section, then splice in a new one. But I would just replace the whole run, because if it's compromised in one spot, it's going to be compromised somewhere else.
Ishmael asked, what can I do with 100 feet of RG8X and radio? What if I just attach 100 feet of coax and just put it on a pole, but the coax is the antenna with PL259 ends on it? What's going to happen? I'll have to put that one on the screen so y'all can read it.
What can I do? 100 feet of RG. Okay.
100 feet. Start with very low power. I don't know.
If you're putting connectors on the end, you're just got a piece of coax, and it's a transmission line. It's gonna
be open ended, and depending on what part of what frequency that is, that may present as a very low impedance or a very high impedance to the radio.
Yeah, it's not going to radiate. If you want it to radiate like an antenna, if you're trying to think of a double bazooka, which we use a coax, there's a section of the way the double bazooka is built that is coax, but in the design, you're not using the coax as transmission line. You're cutting the shield in the middle, and then utilizing the shield as a radiating element. So I think that's where Ish is trying to go, but we're going to have to work that one offline.
Yeah.
You got my head scratching on that one, buddy.
Need input.
Need more information.
Need more info. Okay. So, all right. We're going to be winding up here a little bit. Got a question for you guys. We want to know what you're struggling with. Is there anything that you are struggling with? Whether you're here now, drop it in there. We've got a couple minutes. If you have a question, put a Q in front of it. We could probably get to it here in the last couple minutes of the show before we head off into the Sunday evening net coverage. Again, you're always welcome to join us, our podcast listening audience, on YouTube. If you think that YouTube is okay, join us 6 o'clock Central Time for the live recording. You can ask your questions, be a part of the community. In real time, we welcome you to do that. But we want to know, for our listeners, what are you struggling with? Any aspects of amateur radio that you need help with? Drop us a line in the description of the podcast. You'll be able to contact us and let us know what you're dealing with and what's going on with you there. Let's put on a little bit of tunes as we getting ready to, let's see. Oh, yeah. Put some buttons and bows on this. Yeah, Steve, you were going to say?
Yeah, so I did see here a little while ago someone asking about why can't I use a 20 amp rated power supply on my HF rig. It's, the rig requires 20 amps or 22 amps. Why can't I use a 20 amp power supply? Well, and they talk about it. My radio will shut down, or I have problems. It won't put out full power, and it all comes down to how the power supplies are rated, and it's kind of a numbers game that they're playing. So a 25 amp or a 20 amp power supply is rated, or a 25 amp power supply is rated at intermittent continuous service, or ICS, or something like that, where it is just for a real short period of time of it will produce that 20 amps, but you want a power supply, and its continuous rated is going to be like 16 amps. So the problem becomes is that a lot of people are buying power supplies that are undersized for their rigs that they're using. So when you are speccing out a power supply and your radio needs 22 amps at 13.8 volts, shoot for a power supply that will do at least 25 amps continuous duty. 35 amps is even better. Now you'll have some margin. So look at the continuous current rating of an amplifier. Don't look at the ICS rating, because it's kind of it's for a very, very short period of time that the power supply will make that rating. So if you're looking for a good power supply for your HF rig, look at a 35 watt or 35 amp power supply, and you'll be safe. So something I've been seeing lately, been coming up with folks.
James said he's struggling with the weather. James, give us about, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks, five weeks or so. We'll figure this problem out for you, and hopefully better days are coming. Big Ben says he's struggling. He's having a hard time leaving the Ham Fest after he sells out of everything. Sounds like he's got a little bit of an addiction problem. But
he has a fat wallet, and he's trying to thin that down and you need to go home without the stuff you went there with, Ben. They'll keep the wife happy.
I do want to say thank you again to Ben. KX4TQ. He forwarded along the 30 days the ASU FT4 HT to my brother today at the Ham Fest.
Nice.
As a congratulations for passing his tech test. So he's keeping it in the family, and thank him very much for that. It was very kind and generous of him.
Very nice.
Thanks, Ben.
Right. That's wonderful. We're going to put the bows and ribbons on this one for this week. Thank you all for being around and hanging out with us as we went, as the music fades up. It's so appropriate, but let's kick it again, because we're going to be heading off into our coverage here shortly. Where is it? Play that funky music. Where is it? I don't get that music again. Must be a rights thing. Damn, I got to talk to Scotty, the guy.
You're just still thinking about sending the clowns and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Sending the clowns.
I was thinking that Simpsons episode with
Which one? Which one?
Oh, there was with the clown. I can't remember the character's name.
Krusty the Clown.
Krusty the Clown is singing that song in an episode, and it's real sappy and sad. It's actually the first time I ever heard that song was on that Simpsons episode many years ago. Send in the clowns.
Beautiful old sad song, one of the most depressing things. We don't want to leave you on that note, for God's sakes. So let me see if I can
cry out loud.
Let's wash this out of your mouth.
Way to go.
Okay, yeah, let's get that
Take a look at my girlfriend. She's the only one
I've got. Something, something. Da 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 da. Okay, yeah, we can do that.
There we go.
Thank you guys so much. We will hopefully join you again next Sunday from Missouri. We'll be back home and in the shack. Looking forward to settling back in and doing shows again from home base. So thank you, Steve, W7UDI. Thank you for coming around and hanging out with us again this week.
No problem. Looking forward to it. Yeah, when we get back in the shack, I'm starting to think of Fallout, so we need to start thinking of that coming up. So, yeah, so it's
Glad you said
summer's starting to wind down, unfortunately, but looking forward to a little Fallout action.
Yes.
We're gonna get clobbered again by Paul.
And Uncle Paul's salty and roasted pickled nuts. And Scotty, KC3BXN stroke AE tonight. He's been upgraded, y'all. He's happy. If you
Not to
could
be
only
confused
see
with
his face
AH.
with that AH, Alpha Hotel, which he had many years prior.
I've always been one of those.
Always been an Alpha Hotel. All right, thank you guys. Take care of yourselves. Look out for each other in these tricky times. And by all means, if you can, please try and stay above the noise. We'll catch you again next week. 73, everybody.
7-3, all.
7-3.
To join the 100 Watts in a Wire community, visit 100wattsinawire.com.